Is your home prepared for hurricane season? Don't wait till it's too late. Trust ServPro of Tampa Bay for expert care and helpful tips. Have a plan. Fill your gas tank, stock batteries, charge your phone, and take care of the pets. Call ServPro today and weather any storm with confidence.
Time, weather, and
How you doing, everybody? I'm Chief Meteorologist Dennis Phillips. Heat, still the hot topic of weather conversation, right? Just smashed the previous record for rainfall in Tampa. It's still a very nice day. We've got some clouds out there, even a couple of sprinkles as another front rolls through the area. Most of us wake up to sunshine and then very warm temperatures in the afternoon. Our temperatures, they're going up and they're staying up. Really nice forecast, especially if you're planning on going to the beach or the pool. Rain chances very slim. Another beautiful day in store. It's going to bring us a very high chance of storms. Some isolated showers across the area. Mother Nature likes to remind us that it isn't set by a calendar. We're always on it for you just in case things begin to pop.
Streaming from the ABC Action Weather Center in Studio A. This is Dennis Phillips Live Plus. Brought to you by ServPro, the #1 choice in cleanup and restoration.
How you doing, everybody? Is my mic on? Let me check. Yep, it is. Look who's here today. We have Shay Ryan. If you know, you're new to DPL Plus or DPL. DPL is Tuesdays and Thursdays. We usually talk weather.
Right.
But DPL Plus is something that we've kind of expanded things. We're getting our anchors and we're showing them in areas that people might not know about.
Right.
And this is a huge thing with you, with what's going on. Before we get into discussion stuff,
we had some nasty weather tonight. Oh,
we did have some nasty weather, but I can't, you know. So, well, first of all, we'll get into weather, but I do want to say, so this is a big month for you, and it has to do with this, right?
Right.
So this is
Gluten-free in More magazine, and I was a guest editor for this issue. Yeah, the fall issue.
So how does that happen?
I've been contributing recipes for a couple of years, and they asked me, so they're going through a little bit of a change in within their editing, and they thought they wanted to bring in people with a different voice and who connect to different aspects of the community, and that being the gluten-free community and celiac community. And so they asked different contributors of theirs to be guest editors to bring a different voice to more issues.
Okay, so imagine you're talking to an idiot like me, I am, when it comes to this stuff, because I don't know anything at all about gluten or about any of these things, because Shay knows me, I have really horrible eating habits. I always have. When I was doing keto for a while, I literally, back behind this wall here is a little desk and I have my little grilled cheese maker. I had grilled cheeses every night for 6 months straight with the keto-free, or no, the what's the carb,
like the sugar, the carb-free,
carb-free bread. So I know nothing about this lifestyle, and my first thought would be, man, that sounds like it's a lot of work, and it sounds like it's really hard, and it sounds like it doesn't taste good.
Right.
And that's just not true.
Part of it.
Okay. Well, all right, well, let's get to how you started this journey, because I mean, this isn't something you just woke up and say, you know what? I think I'm going to start going gluten-free.
No, actually, a complete opposite. It was my biggest pet peeve was taking things out of your diet, and I really was bothered by people who would special order in a restaurant. That was one of my big pet peeves. So my thought was, you make a meal, or a chef, or a cook makes a meal, or if you go to someone else's house, you're eating what they're making. Food is a sign of that time and energy that somebody has put into it because they care about you. And so who, would come and say, like, I don't serve me gluten or don't serve me something.
Well, first of all,
it seems picky. It seems like picky eating to me.
What is gluten?
Okay,
I don't even know what that is.
Gluten is a protein that is in wheat. So it's in malt. It's hidden in things. So it would be why am I blanking? Barley.
Things in beer.
Yes.
So
yeah.
you can't have beer?
No. Okay. There are gluten-free beers, but those are in that range of like they don't taste very good. Mm-hmm. But there are a couple that are starting to get better, and that is one of the benefits, is that the more that people know about gluten-free food and the more people who are aware of what's going on with their body and the benefits of not eating gluten if it is a problem for you, there's more available. So, you know, the awareness about gluten-free food is certainly greater than when I was first diagnosed with celiac, which is how I started. So celiac is an autoimmune disease, and it's similar to, I think a lot of people are familiar with diabetes. So if somebody who's diabetic has sugar, it creates a problem with your body, right? So that's an insulin problem. But with celiac disease, it creates an autoimmune response. So it's not an allergy where it's a histamine response, it's an autoimmune response. So any part of your body, any of your organs can be impacted. And so it's often misunderstood that you have a gastrointestinal problem, and that's celiac disease. It's much more than that.
You told me one time that, I mean, your symptoms were, like, I remember when you were telling me the story, like you were having problems with your clenching your fists or something, or I mean, it was just like, that's scary stuff. And how long did it take to diagnose that that's what it was? Did you have to go through a long process?
Yeah, so it was 1 year and 9 months before I was diagnosed, because I wasn't going to a doctor. I think part of it was that I wasn't complaining about my stomach. I was complaining that my hands were cramping up. I had a low-grade fever. I had just a long list of these, what just seemed like odd hypochondriac type symptoms. But my list just kept getting longer and longer. My legs would give out on me when I was walking at the end and just before I was diagnosed. So it can be a lot of odd symptoms that can be part of celiac disease, because like I said, it's an autoimmune disease, so it can attack any part of your body.
Mm-hmm. Lots of questions here, lots of comments, by the way. If you have any questions for Shay, some folks are saying, one person, I'm allergic. I've had to start eating gluten-free over the last couple of years. Don't do it all the time, but probably should. Someone else said, Christy said, wheat allergy here. Thankful for the uptick in available gluten-free foods.
Yes.
And so is that, so and we'll talk about what you've made and whatnot, but how challenging is it to find gluten-free foods pre-made where you don't have to go through the hassle of cooking it yourself? Good ones.
Good ones are the tough part. Yeah, a lot of it's especially hard to find healthy pre-made foods, because a lot of the gluten-free food that you'll find that's pre-made has either extra fat or sugar or carbs in it. So that's completely opposite for the keto, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a completely, I think a lot of people think, or not a lot, but some people think that you go on a gluten-free diet to lose weight, and you couldn't be farther from the truth. Normally, a very small piece of gluten-free bread that usually has a whole bunch of holes in it is something like 1 1/3 the calories of a regular slice of bread. So it would be about 130 calories versus a regular slice of bread that would be a normal size is 100
So
calories.
How do you stay so skinny? A lot of exercise?
Well, you know, everything in moderation. I don't know.
There you go.
My weight goes up and down.
I've known this woman for a long time, and I've never seen the weight go up, but that's another story.
Right.
So Marie says, my granddaughter has celiac disease, very expensive.
Yes, so that's another thing, right, is that one of the frustrations that I think a lot of us have with celiac, they call it the rich man's disease, because everything is smaller and costs twice as much. So that loaf of bread that I was talking about that always seems to have holes in it, she knows. Who was it? It was Jan?
Jan. Jan actually asked, what kind of doctor or specialist should people see with digestive troubles or systems that you describe?
So this is tricky too. But about the cost first, and then we'll go to the doctor. So that loaf of bread that's small is going to cost sometimes, usually between $8 and $12 for a loaf.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And
that was from Janet, by the way.
Janet. And then as far as the doctor, I mean, keep in mind, I am not a medical professional. I'm just a person with celiac disease. So I was diagnosed through a gastroenterologist, and no, I take that back. I was actually diagnosed through, oh my goodness, a rheumatologist. Yes.
You were in New York when it happened,
yes,
right?
Yes, and it was a rheumatologist, and it was the second rheumatologist that I had seen, and the first one did a bunch of blood work. I had so much blood work done over the course of that year and 9 months that you would think that they would have found something, but they just weren't testing for the right thing. And I don't blame it on the doctors. It's just a difficult, you know, I think there are certain things that are difficult to diagnose.
Is it something that they have to, like, a horrible example, but I'm familiar with how they diagnose with ALS. When everything else is ruled out, that's usually all that's left. Is they're like, well, you have ALS because we've ruled everything else. With something like that, do they rule stuff out, or do they actually eventually see the symptoms that are indicative of celiac?
I think it can go either way. You know, I don't really know. I think it probably depends on how probably depends on how the patient is presenting.
And how long of the testing did it take for him to figure out that's what it was with you?
It was, I mean, I went to countless specialists, every kind of test. I went to neurologists. I sought out all kinds of alternative medicine and treatments, and nothing made me feel better. It was, you know, all of that numbness in my fingers and my toes and cramping at night and cramping all over my body and just all kinds of weird stuff.
Some people are saying, so lots of responses here. Yeah, Bridget saying really tough diagnosis. Randy, celiac since 2003, so much easier now. Katie, there's a test for antibodies if someone is eating gluten.
Yes.
So that's something.
Yes. So there is a specific blood test that you can take. So it's actually quite easy to diagnose someone if you know what you're trying to diagnose.
And that's what this person said too. Angela said, I had to specifically request a celiac test.
Yes.
And you need gluten in your system for the antibodies to show on the test.
Absolutely. So if you think you might have a problem with gluten, the last thing you want to do is stop eating gluten before you are tested. And the reason that's important is several-fold, but part of it is that a lot of times celiac disease is genetic. And so you want to make sure that if it is genetic, that those biomarkers show up in your blood test, and then that way you can help, hopefully, the rest of your family. And
now, Danielle said, is it Hale Life Bakery offers so many goodies if you haven't been there yet?
Yes.
Are you familiar with them?
Yeah, Hale Life, yeah.
So,
they have a couple of locations now, too.
Local?
Yeah.
Okay, so once you realized that this was your life, and how did you make the change? I mean, how did you figure out what to do? Were you just lost and you researched it like crazy, or what?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of Googling. I was lucky in that I started in New York in a trial because when I was diagnosed through Columbia University or a doctor who was associated with Columbia. And so they put me into a trial. So I happened to have a lot more support in the beginning with nutritionists and physicians and testing than I think you might often have, but then I moved here, and so that was cut off shortly after. But you do what everybody else does, I think, which is you Google and you seek out people who have similar experiences, which can be difficult, but you try to find your community, and that's part of why I started doing what I'm doing in cooking and sharing recipes, because it took me a long time. I love to cook. I've always loved to cook, and I would go through the grocery store ordering or buying all these different brands of, let's say, Oreo cookies, like the new, the gluten-free Oreo cookie, remake or hack, and they're extremely expensive, and most of them stink. They're just not good. So you spend all this money and you don't want to eat it, and it's not good for you, but you just want to satisfy that craving. And so it gets very expensive. And so what I was trying to do was do little taste tests at home, and then, so my family, we would do blind taste tests and try all the different cookies, and then, choose which one we like, and, just write it down. And so we did that with a lot of different gluten-free foods, just to try to help other people and, within our circle to narrow down. So you don't have to buy all 10 loaves of bread. You can maybe narrow it down to 2 or 3 and then choose what you like.
Now, what about your kids? Do they also eat gluten-free because you eat gluten-free? And is that an issue?
Oh, of course it's been an issue. And we've gone back and forth over the years. So my daughter is still, just hard pressed that she is going to eat gluten. Not in the house really very much because it's dangerous for me. If I come in contact with it, then I get very sick. But my son has noticed that he's now in his teenager, and he notices that his body doesn't react well. He hasn't been diagnosed with celiac, but his body doesn't react well, so he just voluntarily doesn't eat it. And the same with my husband, he doesn't either. So it started out that I was the only one, but then one by one, they all just started falling.
It's funny, I'm reading these comments. Again, I know nothing of this, and there's so many people that are impacted by this.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm reading all these comments and, relatives, husband, different places where you can get stuff. Katie just said, Dennis, I can't tell you how much this means to the celiac community that you're bringing awareness to this. Denise going gluten-free, fixed my hubby's sinus infections, joint pain, had stomach issues. Even pills have gluten in them sometimes.
Yeah.
Katie says May is Celiac Awareness Month.
Yep.
Also, there's several people here who said, oh, I watched Shay in Detroit.
Yes.
So how long ago were you in Detroit? That was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, but I have to say, love Detroit. I mean, there's always a place in my heart for Detroit.
All right, so let's I'm looking here, one other thing. Thank you so much, Shay.
Somebody who was saying about the nasal congestion and all of that, that was another one of the big symptoms that I had. And it seemed so stupid. I kept going to the doctor and they said it was allergies. I had chronic allergies. And so I was taking Zyrtec D regularly. I mean, that is terrible. I mean, who would, that in itself should be a sign that it's something more than allergies when you're regularly going and picking up Zyrtec D.
Did it help or?
Temporarily,
Yeah,
but then it would get to a point where it didn't, so I would stop taking it, take my regular allergy medicine, and the next thing you know, I was, sick again and I needed it because I would start to get dizzy and I would get like vertigo from being overly congested. I guess it goes into your ears or whatever. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but yeah, it would just go from one thing to the next and pile up. And it really stinks.
Becky,
those of you know.
Becky just said, I just went to the doctor today. I've been having the same symptoms for over 2 years and my doctor can't figure it out. So, maybe that's worth asking for a celiac test?
Yeah, it's a celiac panel, an autoimmune panel, and not an autoimmune panel, but it's in the autoimmune panel. It's a celiac test, and you want to make sure that you're getting the antibody test, and if they can do the genetic test as well, that's also beneficial because sometimes you may have the gene, but it hasn't been triggered yet, and that can be helpful because that is sometimes just a clue that you are intolerant, but you haven't, which means you have symptoms and your body is not reacting well to it. Your doctor can explain it better than I can. But
well, this will tie us into the food part of it that I'm interested, because these ribs smell so amazing. Christy's saying, thank you so much, Shay, especially during COVID. I'm a nurse and I set my DVR at noon to get your recipes. Then got them on the ABC site. Thank you for being open to doing this. So you have a video that you sent us, and here it is. So what are we looking at here?
So these are baked donuts, which I kind of say they're fake donuts. Really what it is a cupcake that is in a donut mold. So this satisfies the craving of a donut, gives you that nostalgic donut feel. And this is actually one of the recipes that's in this issue of Gluten-free and More, fall issue. And these are chocolate donuts with a mocha glaze, a chocolate mocha glaze, and they're so easy to make because of the molds. You're just pouring the batter in and then you pop them out, flip them onto the tray, and then you pour the glaze on top if you want some sprinkles, or when we were putting the magazine together, we put on little espresso beans, and then there's a lemon loaf. It's kind of like the Starbucks equivalent. Oh, and the soup that you just saw, that stew, that was from Greg.
Oh, really?
Yes, Greg.
You made that?
Oh, no, well, I made it. It was my
yeah.
interpretation of his and his husband's favorite recipe. It's a like a kale soup with sausage in it, and it's freaking amazing. It's amazing.
And that's a lemon
This is
loaf?
like what you get at Starbucks, the glazed lemon loaf, and just really dense, like a pound cake. So that's not one of those gluten-free loaves where it's really short because it's too dense. It's supposed to be dense. And then, of course, we're looking at the hamburger.
You have like a little spray thing there. Or is that a fire? That's flame.
That is a torch.
Oh.
Fire's
Wow.
good. Fire's fun.
So, all right, so that leads us to the food. So tell us a little bit more about the magazine and what you're doing and where folks can get more information for this.
Yeah, so Gluten-free and More magazine is America's #1 food allergen magazine. And it's really wonderful because not only is it gluten-free, I think a lot of people who eat gluten-free also run into problems with dairy or other allergens. And so, the magazine is very conscientious of a lot of different allergens. But everything that you find in there is gluten-free. And it has a lot of information, whether it's health or psychological, travel, just all aspects of your life are impacted by celiac, unfortunately. And this is a place where you have a community that understands and speaks to you. Mm-hmm. And that was what I experienced being involved with the magazine, is that sometimes it's hard to find that community and you feel like such a problem as someone who has to eat gluten-free and has to ask for something special anytime you eat. We all eat. And when you really enjoy food, it's difficult to be social and have to say, I need something special. So.
And how are you involved with the magazine this month? This is a big thing, right?
Yeah. So I contributed recipes for a couple of years, and and then they asked me to be the guest editor. So I took part in deciding what recipes were going to be in the magazine, what stories, and what articles would be in there. And so we worked together and went through all of the ideas. It was really cool. It was a great experience in a way that I hadn't been involved with the gluten-free community before, and being able to really see and hear from other people who understand the disease the same way, what interests them and what their needs are, and so it allowed me to do that.
And how can people get copies of this?
So Sprouts, Whole Foods, and Barnes & Nobles are 3 of the big carriers, and you can also subscribe to it if you just go to their website, Gluten-free and More magazine, or glutenfreeandmore.com, and there's a subscription link there, and you can get a subscription. And then, of course, those stores, Barnes & Noble, Sprouts, and Whole Foods. And then you can also find some other specialty health food stores will have it. Mm-hmm. But those are the big 3.
Okay, so Marianne's asking, how have you been able to adjust to large social settings like parties, holiday meals, and how to deal with isolating it can be and having to give explanations to people about living gluten-free? It's a tough, I'm sure that's a tough situation.
It's so tough. So the first thing I do is I always have food in my bag with me. I don't go anywhere hungry. I don't go to any event hungry. If I feel comfortable, I'll reach out to the person who's hosting in advance. If it's a wedding, sometimes especially if you're not close with the person who's getting married, you might be, then I try to look at those occasions, and even when I just go out to eat with a group of friends or family, I try to look at those occasions as time to spend with my friends or my family instead of time to eat. I used to go out to enjoy the meal, and now I go out to enjoy the people. And then I usually tell whoever is serving that I would rather not eat than get sick. So, I'll eat anything, just, as long as it's safe.
Because I remember this was, gosh, time flies. I don't remember how long ago it was, but I remember you getting sick. It was 6 months ago, a year ago, whenever it was. I think you were supposed to go into work and you couldn't because you went to a restaurant or something, and there was
I was going to say, I think that happened 2 times since I've worked here. I try really hard not to go out to eat when I have to work the next day.
Which is just crazy to think.
Right. And I remember one of them. I remember it was a pizza that I ate, and they brought me the wrong pizza, and it was just, there was no labeling, and sometimes you ask twice, you ask 3 times. Oh, I know what it was. Yes, I know exactly what it was, and this was funny. So it was a friend's birthday, and so I did the occasion, okay, I'll go out, on I think it was a Thursday night or Wednesday night, something along those lines, for dinner. And at the end of the meal, they had 2 cookies. One was gluten-free, that was chocolate chip, and one was, I found this out afterward, and the one with sprinkles was glutinous. And so I had eaten at this place before, lovely establishment, mistakes happen, but they brought out the wrong cookie, and I wasn't even gonna eat it, but my friends made a big deal about how wonderful it was and the fact that it was gluten-free, and I was like, all right. I think I had 2 or 3 bites of it, and it was devastating. Yeah, I didn't make it to work, did I?
No, I remember that. Your husband, you were so sick, you couldn't even...
Yeah, no, I couldn't even make the phone call.
Yeah, your husband called. By the way, we have 4 minutes left on streaming. We're continuing on Facebook, but since we have streaming, we got to at least talk about what we have here. So these are...
Dr. Pepper
ribs. That is awesome. I mean, look how... I mean, you obviously can't smell, but... Look at those, so amazing. They smell absolutely insane. Am I allowed to bring these home, or are you?
Yes, of course. No, so Dr. Pepper ribs, ribs are not hard to make gluten-free. That's not reinventing the wheel, but well,
this is going to be dinner for me.
But I was talking to Chris May, who, we were like, what can we make for dinner?
What's the sauce?
So the sauce is the pan sauce that the ribs were actually cooked in. So these were made in a crock pot, and then the pan sauce was reduced. So do you like spicy?
I
forgot to ask you that. Okay, because I was going to say there is a little kick to that.
So good.
And then I reduced Dr. Pepper. So there's a Dr. Pepper syrup if you want it
what extra. What does reduced mean? I hear that all the time on cooking shows.
Boil it until it's half what it was. So then it's just extra flavor.
Okay. By the way, I'm not sharing these with anyone, so I'm allowed to use my fingers on them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Now, and what about the cupcakes?
Okay, so the cupcakes, it's a vanilla cupcake that I turned into a Dr. Pepper cupcake. So a buttercream icing that I just put some of the Dr. Pepper syrup in. And then on top, it's a Dr. Pepper gelatin.
Oh.
And so in all seriousness, that might sound, that's not sophisticated, it's Jell-O. That's Dr. Pepper. Because we kept...
Ribs are so good.
So I'm really big on making things multiple times until I get it the way I really like. And I procrastinated a little bit.
But they're so pretty.
But so that's how I tried to get the Dr. Pepper flavor in. It was a lot harder to get the Dr. Pepper flavor in a cupcake. I heard they make donuts. Have you had the donuts? I can't eat them.
Not.
I think it's a Krispy Kreme.
I think they're just out because whenever there's a Dr. Pepper thing, I get my messages on Facebook flooded with.
Yes, a lot of people.
Somebody sent me Dr. Pepper Slim Jims.
Ooh, what?
And they're actually in the back right there. Somebody sent me a big box of them. I've not tried them yet. I wasn't sure. I got to try them. But
I had a really hard time trying to get that Dr. Pepper, the flavor, really in there. But yeah, it was fun.
Well. So again, for the streamers, we have a minute left for the streamers. Anything else that we didn't cover or ways that people can, I think based on the comments, this is great. Yeah. A lot of people have questions on the recipes, questions on how they can get more information.
Yeah, by all means. So I have my blog at homewithshay.com, and you can always email me, direct message me on any social media platforms, and I'm more than happy to help connect you to other people in the community or answer questions, and happy to help with recipes, anything along those lines. I'm not a doctor or anything, but I'm a person who is always happy to support.
And when do your stories run quickly? We have 15 seconds. Your story on our air?
On the morning shows and on the weekend mornings.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. All right, well, we're going to continue a few more minutes on Facebook to answer a few more questions. Streamers, thanks for stopping by. We'll be back tomorrow with the tropics and your holiday weekend forecast. Thanks for stopping by. Right, so
I'm like 15 seconds.
Streamers are gone.
Do I know television? I don't know.
Now we have Facebook. Now we still have Facebook. So,
oh, it's so funny.
Shay, what is the best gluten-free flour that you recommend?
Depends on what you're making. Yeah, I would love to say that there was one, but truthfully, I don't believe that there is one. There are two that I mainly use, and one of them is the Bob's Red Mill 1-to-1 baking flour, and it's in a blue bag. It's not their all-purpose. The all-purpose has a chickpea flour base in it, and it's horrible, in my opinion. Sorry, I shouldn't say that about Bob's Red Mill because they're fantastic in a lot of ways, but I really dislike that one. It has a weird aftertaste. But the one in the blue bag is great for just about anything, like cupcakes, quick breads, that kind of thing. Very versatile, but if you're doing something like pasta or something delicate like a pie crust, you want to use cup for cup. That one, I think it just has more, believe it or not, it's cornstarch that's in it. And it's that cornstarch that helps to make the more delicate doughs.
Someone says, how do you eat when guys are hunkering down at the station during a hurricane? I mean, you just bring all your own stuff, right?
I do, yeah, most of the time. Yeah, I don't, that's like the worst time to get sick, yeah, so I always bring my own.
And Bridget says that she's heard that some people say stress is a huge thing to trigger celiac. Have you ever, does that?
I've heard that, right. So I was diagnosed after my second child was born, and I've also heard that sometimes pregnancy with women, that's why women are I've heard this, again, not a doctor, I don't know, but I've heard that women who are in their mid-30s are more frequently diagnosed with autoimmune diseases because of the stress of pregnancy.
Well, it makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
That's when I was diagnosed.
Christy says also when we were talking about the pizza that sometimes they sprinkle flour on the board of your gluten-free pizza. And that can, because it doesn't take much to contaminate it, right?
That would be it. Yeah, if somebody sprinkled flour on the board, I'd be done. Yeah. I'd be calling in sick, Dennis.
Let's see. I think. Well, we've got a few more questions. Let me see. Now, someone says that Disney has a great gluten-free app showing exactly where you can eat in Disney. Have you?
I haven't used the app, but Disney is really, really good about it. Yeah, they're fantastic.
Do you go to parks very often? I mean,
I don't go as much as you do, Dennis.
Yeah, well, it's not my choice. Those around me love Disney and Universal, so I'm, you know.
Yeah, no, I actually had a great experience at Universal. They were fantastic. What was I can't remember now what the resort. Didn't I talk to you about it? What was the resort I stayed at? You probably remember it better than I do.
Was it on grounds?
Yeah.
The Portofino?
Yes. They were amazing.
Yeah.
They were great.
Yeah.
Yeah, they, just kind of catered to us too, because the friend I was with, she was also gluten-free.
Nancy says, loves the magazine, loved it mentioned Barif going next week. I think it's Banff.
Banff. Yes.
What is that?
So she must have already read the article in there. Yeah. So this is the travel article, and what's cool is this is also where LSG went on her honeymoon.
Lauren St. Germain, by the way, for folks who don't know what that abbreviation means.
Yeah, I guess
sometimes she does.
Yeah, sometimes on air, right? We all call her LSG behind the scenes. But yes, so that was where she went on her honeymoon, and it's right on the Canadian Montana. Oh my goodness, am I getting my geography wrong? That's really embarrassing.
She was in,
she went to Glacier,
Montana.
Glacier National Park, and then went into Canada and at Banff. I'm not going to pronounce it right either. Banff.
But what is there?
It's a beautiful town, and so one of the writers, one of the contributors to Gluten-free and More, the travel writer, she had a trip there, and so she talks about the great gluten-free experiences that you can have, and there's some amazing food and just adorable places, and it's great for the holidays too. And that was what she was highlighting is, for anybody who's planning on traveling over the winter, and that they've got some cool stuff.
Sawa says it's in Alberta, Canada. So there you go. Canadian Rockies from Nancy.
Yeah, that's one of the big problems too, is traveling when you have celiac, trying to figure out what restaurants you can go to, where it's going to be safe, where it's not. Yeah, my family has a lot of great stories about situations that we've been in. I mean, a lot.
Well, I don't want to keep you much late because it's about your bedtime.
It is. This is true.
Shay's up very early and goes, it's early to bed, early to rise, as your parents used to say, or mine did. But thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
I am going to talk a little bit about some weather now. So if you want to head on home if you want to get some sleep. And I can bring these home?
Yes, it's all you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks, Shay.
Thank
all
you.
Right, so that's awesome. And again, they can find your everything on ABC Action News. It's got to be on our website somewhere, right?
Yes, actually there is a tab for At Home with Shay, and of course you can always email me through the station or through the website and social media.
Awesome. Thanks, Shay. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dennis, so much.
All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the radar here, and we will get into weather. This, I normally go on my squirrel thing where I spend 15, 20 minutes before I get to the weather. This was good stuff. Honestly, we had a lot of people here, great questions. People really enjoyed it. Shay, again, thank you so much. We will see you tomorrow, right? Oh, let me unhook you. That's all right. Okay. So there's a look at the radar, and boy, I'll tell you, we had some powerful thunderstorms across the area today, and we had about 6 inches of rain in northeastern Hillsborough County, or rather northeastern Pinellas County. Still raining right now, as you can see, from Clearwater down to St. Pete, western Manatee. Check out some of these rainfall totals. So you look at Hernando, things are winding down. Again, still some light rain, really from around, say, Dunedin south to the Skyway. But the rainfall totals over a stretch, easily 4 to 6 inches of rain fell along the coast. Now, that was 5 hours ago, so now it won't show as much. But if you look at Pinellas, there are the totals. Between 3 and 7 inches of rain fell. Same in western Hillsborough County. South Tampa, about 2 inches of rain. And it extended into Pasco County as well, southwestern Pasco, 2 to 4 inches of rain. And extending also into Hernando as well. So temperatures right now, 70s to around 80 degrees outside, 77 and partly cloudy now at the airport. Winds out of the east at 5 miles an hour. We had 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts this afternoon with severe thunderstorm warnings. We had marble-sized hail reported as well. The record was 97. We were 2 degrees shy of that. East to west flow. This is what the old-timers who have lived there most of their life. I used to be able to set my watch by 4 o'clock. It would always rain. And we've heard that for the longest time. It has not been like that forever, but it has been the last several days, right? As those temperatures were hot, the moisture came in. We had an east to west flow. It bumped into the west coast sea breeze, and then boom, the storms popped. So why more today than yesterday? Well, if you were watching yesterday, we told you it was going to be more active today simply because there was more moisture to work with. More moisture, higher rain coverage. Tomorrow, not quite as much as today, but still some decent coverage. All right, and then Bridget always says that's my Jimmy Stewart impersonation. Oh, well, you got some rain coming in. Anyway, and then Thursday night, we clear out. So through Labor Day weekend, sunny mornings, sunny early afternoon, and then the storms pop between about 3 and 4 until 7. Coverage will be lower on Friday and into the weekend. By the way, I'm going with my squirrel at this point. Squirrel? You were talking about Jimmy Stewart. For some reason, it reminded me of a documentary. I just saw this really awesome documentary on Elizabeth Taylor on Max. Watched it a couple of nights ago. I don't know why. I was up 2:33 in the morning, and it just flipping through, and it just came on. It's really interesting. So if you have Max or HBO, or you ever have a chance to see this documentary, I didn't realize there was recorded tapes of her being interviewed a long, long time ago, and she had a really interesting life. And little known story, backstory on Dennis right here. So my Aunt Joyce, my Aunt Joyce was a nurse at the Big Stone Gap, Virginia hospital. I think it was called Wise County or Powell Valley. I'm not sure which one it was. Well, if you remember, younger people won't remember this, but some of the older folks might remember, Elizabeth Taylor, when her husband was Governor Warner of Virginia, went to Fraley's steakhouse in Big Stone Gap, Virginia, and she choked on a chicken bone and had to go to the ER to get the chicken bone out, I guess. My Aunt Joyce was her ER nurse in the ER at that time. This probably happened in the 70s or 80s maybe, I don't really remember, but it was a thing. Yeah, Bridget just tagged Paul Wilson. So the Wilson family, you guys know John Wilson and Mark Wilson and Paul and all those guys. They're from Big Stone Gap, Virginia. And that's how I got on this tangent. But so John Wilson, remember John was an anchor at Channel 10 and at Fox for decades and decades. And his family's they still live local and very, very active. Big singing family. And so John, his mom and my mom were really good friends. So when I went to visit my mom, we went over to Johnny's house because John Wilson, his mom, called him Johnny, and they invited me in, and I told her, I was like, oh yeah, I do the weather in Tampa, and I don't think she knew at the time or whatever, but they had an entire wing of their house as we went in, dedicated to Patrick Wilson, worldwide movie star, John, Paul, I mean, all of them, right? I mean, just probably one of the most talented families you will ever see. And I walked in, and the mom was showing me Johnny's Little League trophies and all. It was the greatest thing. I just thought it was the most awesome thing. But that was in Big Stone Gap. I got there because Elizabeth Taylor choked on a chicken bone in Big Stone Gap, and my Aunt Joyce treated her in the ER. I repeat, watch the documentary. That was not in there, but it was actually a really good documentary. Shay's like, what? It's about Elizabeth Taylor, and it's on Max right now, and they found old tapes of her being interviewed. And I can't say that I was a fan of Elizabeth Taylor. I am after listening to these audio tapes. And here's something you may or have not known. I don't know how we got on this. Elizabeth Taylor, everybody well, she's passed away obviously, but gave her a lot of grief about how many marriages she had. She was married to the love of her life, her second husband. I know this after watching this documentary. He was a Broadway producer and madly in love. You could just tell that was the one for her. And he died in a plane crash going back to New York to get an award, and she was supposed to go with him, but she had a cold that day and did not fly. And when her husband died, it was while she was filming Cat on a Hot Tin Roof with Paul Newman. And she was going to stop being an actress because she wanted to be home and she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom because she found the perfect guy. And the husband died, can't remember what his name was, but it just devastated her. And she went back a couple of weeks later and performed the role in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, where I think she won an Oscar for it. And then she even said that at that point on, I just lost so much of my heart that I really don't know what I was doing from that point on. And that's when she started marrying all these different guys. But anyway, how did we get to that point? Oh yeah, I have no idea. But anyway, it was a good story. It's a very good documentary. So Mike Todd, Anna Maria says. Mike Todd was his name. Yeah, it is. It's Shay is where, James? You're asking about my Shay or this Shay? Shay Ryan was here. You missed it. Did you need me for something else?
No. I was just.
You want to bring the?
I didn't want to walk in, but here, I'll grab some stuff. No. That's yours. I was just going to grab the rest.
Okay. All right. No, you're good. All right. Okay. So how did I get to the Elizabeth Taylor story? I'm trying to even remember how I got there. Oh, the Wilson family, John Wilson. But then how did I get there? I don't know. Anyway, regardless, let's get back.
Here's a napkin and a wet one, because it's ribs,
but this is a fancy napkin. I should just have a paper towel. I'm a paper towel kind of guy. But thank you very much. All right, so let's go ahead and look quickly at the tropics, shall we? Okay, and let's go ahead and call this one up here. All right, so. You're like, wait a minute, I thought this was a weather chat. We talked about gluten and Elizabeth Taylor. That's what we did. All right, so anyway, here's a look at the GFS, okay? And this is the latest GFS. And, we know that there's this area with a 20% chance of development. We're full screen, Shay. You don't have to worry about hiding. Okay. She didn't want to walk in front of the camera, but I'm like full screen on this anyway. So here's the 8 o'clock update, still at 20%. So you know me, I'm a glasses half full kind of guy. Instead of a 20% chance of development, I say there's an 80% chance that it doesn't develop. That's kind of my take on things. So anyway, there's a look at Thursday. You know, we kind of look, I'm going to go ahead and play this so you can kind of see how the models are shaping up. But, you know, you see the area out that the NHC is looking at. Still just really doesn't do much. There it starts to develop a little bit. This could very well be the wave behind it, truth be told, and it goes more to the north. Now, I do want you to look at the Western Gulf, okay, because the Western Gulf, there definitely could be some development in the Bay of Campeche. And for that matter, when you look at the ensemble runs from the Euro, which talks about the possibility of cyclone areas of low pressure. That's all a cyclone is. It's just an area of low pressure. Cyclone locations, you notice as you go down the road, you know, you start to see a little bit more of these out in the southwestern Gulf. But the fact that there's little lows all over the place kind of means to us that there's obviously no agreement on anything. And I'm still eating these ribs. They're so good. And it's just nothing to worry about. So at the end of the day, here's how things are shaping up. Tomorrow, afternoon storms after 4 o'clock. Not the intensity that we had today in a widespread area, but there will be some stronger storms. It's Florida in the summertime, right? The rainy season's got another 3 weeks usually. Typically mid-September, it starts to wind down. We're going to continue with our easterly flow right through the holiday weekend. That means sunny mornings, sunny early afternoon, and then the storms pop between 4 and 8 o'clock. Just like the folks who've lived here all their lives for a long time saying it used to be. We're kind of looking at that pattern for the foreseeable future. The tropics will remain quiet through Labor Day. All right? So tomorrow we'll be back and we'll talk, it'll just be tropical talk and forecast, you know, for the weekend. But if you're here Wednesday nights, DPL PLUS is an opportunity. You know, last week we talked fantasy football. We talked gluten this week. Heather Lee was here a couple of weeks earlier to talk about child care problems. So we try to bring some issues because all of these have been questions that y'all have brought to us and sent to us. And we're like, all right, let's do Wednesday night where we have a chance to answer your questions and get a chance to kind of hang out and see a little bit behind the curtain instead of when you're just on TV, just, you know, have a chance to meet Shay when you don't see her on TV, or Kyle, or Heather, or Lydia, or whoever else is here, right? So we had lots of folks here. So, and you're right, Anna Maria. Holy cow, I forgot about that. Thank you. See, Anna Maria is my producer. Tomorrow night, we have the editor-in-chief of the Farmer's Almanac, who I'm going to be Skyping with, and she is going to tell us about the long-range winter prediction from the Farmer's Almanac. We've had the former editor who retired a couple of years ago. She was awesome, had a great time, talked about a lot of stuff. So let your friends know if you have any questions about folks up north. They always want to know is how much snow are they going to get. Long-range predictions with the Farmer's Almanac, that will be on tomorrow night's edition of DPL. So you guys have a great night. Thanks for coming, stopping by, and we'll see you tomorrow night on our next edition of Dennis Phillips Live. See you guys.